At the South Carolina Book Festival, I talked with photographer Frank Baker. Listen on to see why I had to ask. Hi, I'm Elaine Freeman, and I'm with Mr. Frank Baker at the South Carolina Book Festival. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I saw you have a degree in journalism, and especially for newscasting. What advice do you have for young journalists?
Well, for young journalists, today is certainly a challenge to report the news and to report it accurately, but it's even more important for young people who consume the news to think critically about where their news comes from. And is the news that you're getting accurate? How do you know that it's accurate? And not to believe everything. It's important to have what I call media literacy, critical, healthy skepticism.
So how did your background in journalism help you when you started photography, taking pictures of great blue herons?
That's a really good question. I'll go back to when I was in college. I was very interested in photography, and I took a photography class. And then I started my career in journalism, and I kind of put photography away. But I began to be interested in something called photojournalism. So that's the people who take the pictures that end up being in the news, and the challenges of people who have to go into like Iraq or Afghanistan and go into places that are not safe. And how does a photographer do his or her job under very stressful kinds of conditions? I don't have stressful conditions. I go to the river, I sit for hours, and I can wait for a really good opportunity to photograph the great blue heron. So I'm real fortunate that I'm able to develop my photography skills. And today anybody with a mobile phone or an e-tablet that's got a built-in camera is already a photographer. But a lot of young people haven't learned the rules of photography or the skills. And so I would say anybody that's interested in photography should definitely go out and take lots of pictures, but learn some of the rules and talk to other photographers about those rules.
So you work for PBS. What was this like?
Thank you for asking that. I worked for South Carolina Public Television, South Carolina ETV, and I worked in the education department. I actually promoted educational programs that teachers could use in the classroom. So if it was math or science or social studies, I wanted to make sure that teachers knew that they had access to thousands of hours of videos. And since you're in school, and most of your audience might be also in school, most of your teachers use videos. And a lot of those videos came from South Carolina ETV.
Yes. So last March you went to India to work with teachers and students at the American School of Bombay. What was the most rewarding thing you earned from this experience?
That's a great question. I think just going halfway around the world and seeing a new culture, a new people, understanding the challenges that people have in the largest country in the world. I saw very, very poor people, and I saw lots of pollution, but I also saw really beautiful people, women in the most beautiful saris. I saw birds. I photographed birds while I was in India. I photographed the Taj Mahal. I gave a couple of lectures at a couple of universities. So it was an opportunity for me to go somewhere else other than South Carolina and learn about a new culture. And India is absolutely fascinating, and I would tell anybody that's interested in traveling to look at the advantages of traveling and looking at Southeast Asia, and that part of the world is just beautiful.
Okay. So what have you learned from being a photographer?
I've learned patience. I've learned that I can sit and really enjoy not having to answer the phone or to have to get up and go someplace. That there's a big advantage in sitting and drinking in the breeze and the sunshine and nature and really appreciating Mother Nature and God's green earth. I don't think a lot of us stop and smell the roses is the expression, and I think that's something important to do. So it's definitely taught me patience.
Okay, so how can educators teach about nature to children in a fun way?
I think the best way is to encourage them to go outside. So when we go to school, we go into a building, and we're in that building for 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 hours a day, right? I think learning has to take has to go outside. You know, when I was growing up, it was called a field trip. Maybe it's still called that today. But more than that, it's to go out and explore and to ask questions and to say why are things like the way that they are. And I think young people, if they're curious and if they do ask questions about everything, it's extremely important. And you know, outside is a wonderful world. You know, 3 years ago I would never have looked at a bird. And now I know so much about the great blue heron and other birds, and that's because I'm curious. I want to learn, and I want to know as much as I can.
Okay, what advice do you have for young and aspiring photographers?
Well, I would say, first of all, learn everything you can about your camera. So if your camera is in your phone, it has certain limitations. I have a camera that has interchangeable lenses, and I now have to learn about shutter speed and f-stop and ISOs and exposure and light. And if you take the time to learn how to manipulate all of those and not put your camera on automatic, you can create some really beautiful, beautiful images. So as a photographer, I now go outside and say, it's a cloudy day. I know I need to put my camera on this setting. Or I'm going to take a picture of something in the shade. I need to change that setting. Or it's a bright sunny day. Or I'm going to take a picture of something that's going to move very, very quickly. Well, that's going to take a fast shutter speed. It requires you to really understand what you need to do. But the other part of it is because of digital photography, you can see your results right away. You can look and see, oh, gee, I didn't do that right. I need to do it differently the next time around. And that's great. That means you are learning the right way and the wrong way. And I would say, look at other people's photographs, look at books of photography, decide what you like and what you don't like. You develop your own personal style. For me, when I'm out shooting birds, frequently I'm shooting through foliage and brush, and then the bird's way in the background. And sometimes that's really difficult to do, so it becomes a challenge. And I like a challenge. You know, if the bird is standing there and not moving, that's an easy picture to take. But I also like when the bird is not easy to find and it becomes a challenge.
Okay, if you could go back in time and give a younger you advice, what would you say?
Oh wow, I would say don't give up that photography hobby that you did when you were a teenager. Continue to do it. But when I was a teenager, we didn't have digital photography. We had film, and we had to take the film into a dark room and develop it with chemicals. And so if you took a picture, it might be a day or 2, 3 days later before you saw the results. And that was, really challenging. So I would say continue to do your photography and to grow and to share your photography with everybody. And in fact, that's what I do today. I share my photography on my website. I shared it here at the book festival. I share it with everybody that I meet.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell our listeners?
I would say always be interested in learning something new. And when you get out of school, that doesn't mean that learning stops. Become a lifelong learner. Always ask questions. And if you can't find the answers to your questions, find someone who can help you get to those answers. And you'll be successful because you're inquisitive and you'll have a healthy skepticism.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.